Is objectively relevant and issue-based in impacting the governance systems of the day. Get your answers on your Voice Governance program as we feature different stakeholders and political leaders as they voice out, only on Munati Television every Friday at 20 hours. Munati Television, your TV on the go.
Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. And this is your Voice Governance program on Munati Television. Now, today we have a very special guest who is coming from Zimbabwe, and he's joining us via a streaming program. And this evening we want to look at democracy, the state of democracy in Zimbabwe. Now, the Zimbabwean general election of the August 2023, from the 23rd to 24th of August, were widely reviewed as fraudulent. This was the conclusion of the community, SADC Electoral Observer Mission and other, independent observers mission from the Southern Africa, such as the COMESA Union, EU, among others. Now, today is our main focus is the state of democracy in Zimbabwe. Now, to help us discuss this subject, we have Dr. Langa Sindiso, who is coming from the Citizen Coalition for Change, CCC, which is one of the main opposition political parties in Zimbabwe. Good evening, Doctor.
Hello, my brother. Thank you so much for having me, and hello, viewers. It's great to be with you on this program.
Of issues that are coming from Zimbabwe this evening. Let's start with the elections that were there in August. How do you describe the elections?
My brother, how I can describe the election is that as many observer missions stated, these elections were a sham, they were shambolic, they were not a proper democratic process that we would expect in a SADC country. Unfortunately, that's what happened. There were many problems which resulted in the elections not meeting some of the best practice protocols for elections, including those for SADC. Unfortunately, that's what happened in Zimbabwe. So obviously, we did have someone who was declared the president, and we also had people elected into parliament and into local councils. So we, as a movement, the CCC, we see this as a caretaker government because we need to have proper elections. So that the will of the Zimbabwean people is properly respected, and I'm sure Zambians will very well identify with what I'm talking about. Thank you.
All right. So Dr. Sindiso is the National Deputy Spokesperson coming from the CC party, like I said. Now, we want to look at the state of democracy, just in case you have just tuned in. And also, you can follow us on our YouTube channels, as well as Facebook, and as we deliberate on this important issue. Now, how's the relationship with your country and Zambia?
My brother, just a point of clarification. I'm not the deputy spokesperson. I know we were expecting our spokesperson to be on the program. He had some technical challenges and he passes his apologies. However, one of the diasporans, CCC members, and I think that our relationship with Zambia is very strong. Zimbabwe and Zambia, We are brothers and sisters. We have a very strong special relationship. In fact, I hear some Zimbabweans sometimes call Zambia Zimbabwe North. And I'm sure Zambians do the same when they talk about Zimbabwe, because we have such a special relationship, and nothing at all can ever make this change, because we're brothers and sisters. And thank you for all the support that you give to your brothers and sisters in Zimbabwe.
That we are brothers and sisters. We saw your people coming from Zimbabwe, condemning our government over the recent elections that you had. Does that take away, some of the things that you've talked about?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't really. Obviously, in any election, there are going to be challenges, there are going to be disappointments, there are going to be frustrations. What we have seen in Zimbabwe is that we have turned the elections into a kind of a war, where we end up saying that people who disagree with the government of the day become enemies. That should never be the case. We do know that Dr. Nevas Mumba SADC observer mission in Zimbabwe, and indeed him and his team did an excellent job. I understand that because of the work that was done, some in Zimbabwe felt that maybe he shouldn't have been that good. That's what I can say, but that shouldn't speak to our relationship as countries, as sister nations. Not at all. There's no reason why disagreements or disagreements should make us look at each other any differently. Thank you, my brother.
So now, what is your party doing to make sure that some of the irregularities that were mentioned in SADC report are, not just buried on the ground, and also, what is your party doing in those regards?
So, my brother, there have been a few developments that have happened since the election. What we want to see is to have a credible election in Zimbabwe, and that's going to be a process. So, the SADC Observer Mission, they helped us in terms of highlighting issues that Zimbabwean citizens have been pointing out for several cycles of elections now. So what we are doing is obviously to educate Zimbabwean citizens in terms of the need for us to have a credible election. Because if we don't have a credible election in one form or the other, we're going to have a cycle of a governance crisis in Zimbabwe. That governance crisis is resulting in a collapsed economy, in a collapsed healthcare delivery system. Our infrastructure is all over the place, and this affects everyone, including people in Zambia, people in South Africa, people in Botswana. So that's one thing that we are doing, to educate everyone, to highlight what needs to happen to the region, to SADC, to the African Union, the United Nations, and everyone. At the local level, a number of developments have happened. One of them is that soon after Parliament was opened, some members of Parliament from the CCC were removed by the Speaker of Parliament, which is a very bizarre development. So we need that to be corrected. So as we speak, the citizen movement has said that its representatives who are in Parliament and Council disengage until those members of Parliament are back to do the work of the citizens of Zimbabwe. So we want those members of Parliament to be reinstated so that they can continue to make laws on behalf of Zimbabwean citizens. This is one of the developments that has happened. I can elaborate further on that, my brother.
All right, so BBC 2 days ago touched on one of what you've just said. The BBC reported that 15 opposition MPs in Zimbabwe had filed a court appeal saying they were tricked into losing their parliamentary seats. This is after a man falsely claimed to be the party secretary general, said the party were no longer its members. On that, we saw, your party, going to court. Take us through what happened. there seems to be, confusion in your party.
My brother, if it was confusion in the party, it would be one thing. This is not confusion in the party. What has happened is that our constitution, the Zimbabwean constitution, allows for a party which helped elect members of parliament under its platform or in its platform, using its platform, to recall those members of parliament of council if they stop being members of that particular party who helped them get into parliament. That is what our constitution allows for in Zimbabwe. What has happened, unfortunately, is that some detractors are working in collaboration with those running our state institutions currently, including parliament. What they have done is to abuse that allowance in our constitution. So in terms of these 15 members of parliament, what happened was basically that someone wrote a letter to the Speaker of Parliament purporting to be acting on behalf of the Triple C movement and saying that the 15 members of parliament were no longer members of Triple C, and that is incorrect. The first mistake is to acknowledge such a letter. The Speaker of Parliament should have verified that this person who wrote this letter is an imposter. As we speak, Triple C has filed they have gone to authorities, including the police, to file a report of fraud because this person is not representing Triple C. So that is the premise. And the Speaker of Parliament should not have acted on the basis of a falsehood. So right now, that is why the party is saying, Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Jacob Mutenda, we are giving you 14 days to correct the mistake you made. Because our president for Triple C, who was the presidential candidate, he actually wrote letters to the Speaker of Parliament verifying, clarifying our position. And the Speaker of Parliament should not just accept a letter coming from anybody. Right now, I'm a member of Triple C. I cannot just write a letter to the Speaker of Parliament saying I'm recalling these members of Parliament who were elected by the citizens. It doesn't work like that. There's due process. That due process didn't happen. And that is why the citizen movement is saying, Speaker of Parliament.
Unfortunately, we seem to have network challenges. Nevertheless, let's take a look at the videos that are coming from Zimbabwe, then we deliberate further with Dr. Sindiso.
Right, we are protesting because the speaker is getting instructions from ZANU-PF. We wrote a letter to the speaker that on the 11th of September that all correspondence are done through the office of the president as Nelson Chamisa. But our surprise today, the speaker called our members of parliament, and the person who is said to be the Secretary General is not a member of our party, the so-called Chawan. So we are protesting that as a party, it's not recalled, not even a single MP. That's why I'm making this noise. Yeah. It's unheard of. Munyika munomu hakuna mtemo kuti mapurisa anopona parliament nemategas. Mapurisa parliament nemategas. Vachirwa nemabhatani stick muparliament ma-MP akasaridzwa nevanhu hazvipo pano panyika zvongori mucherechedzo wekuti maelection akabirwa zvembati pamusoro so asi kuda kuva voice rinobva kuopposition vakuwara vakatondei munhu wese ari pano akuwara nokuti munhu wese apina parliament anga achidhonzwa achirwa nemabhatani stick vachikana mategas mukati meparliament saka kangoti ma-MP ese ari 104 vakuwara. Aiwa, tichagara pasi vatungamire musangano tokuzivisa kuti chafamba sei.
Thank you very much. Dr. Simbiso, that is a video that is coming right in your country where 15 members of parliament actually protesting after, a letter was handed to, Speaker of the National Assembly that 15 MPs were no longer part of your members. Who would do that?
My brother, I hope you can hear me. You can hear me better. My brother, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can definitely hear you, sir. Go ahead.
Could you kindly repeat the question? I didn't quite get it.
All right, so after those 15 MPs that were now ex-MPs, if I would call them like that, have your party officials, who would do that?
That's what's bizarre, my brother. So what has happened is what we call state capture. So apparently, there is a cabal who are working with anybody who is willing to work with them to just disrupt the citizen movement. We believe that the Speaker of Parliament is part of this problem. He should not just accept a letter that comes from anyone, including myself. I can write to the Speaker of Parliament, but I can't write and say I am recalling these members of Parliament because I did not elect those members of Parliament. They were elected by citizens of Zimbabwe. Even if I was a representative of the party, there is a due process that should be followed, and there is a communication that should be followed, a communication pathway. All that didn't happen. So we don't know what motivated the guy who wrote the letter to the Speaker of Parliament. Even if he had grievances, assuming he was a member of Triple C, there is a way you can address that. You don't address that by recalling citizen representatives who were elected by citizens of Zimbabwe. You just don't do that. There is a due process, and that was not followed. And that is why we are saying to the Speaker of Parliament, correct the mistake you made. Just reinstate those members of Parliament because you recalled them on the basis of an error. It was a mistake. You should not just accept a letter from anyone who is purporting to be representing the Triple C movement. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that in Zambia. It doesn't work like that in any other country. And we think that the speaker can correct this mistake so that the citizen representatives can go back to work in parliament.
For those of you that have just joined us, the number is right on your screen. You should be able to join us shortly. And with that said, Dr. Langa Simbiso, I do hope that I pronounced your name correctly. We also did see a letter coming from that must be the youth wing that wanted your president to be expelled from your party. Isn't that confusion?
That's the same guy. The letter came from the same guy who purportedly recalled our members of parliament. There is absolutely no confusion. We, the citizens of Zimbabwe, know who our leaders are, including our president, Nelson Chamisa. It's very clear. The confusion is outside there. It's not happening in the movement. Our president, Advocate Nelson Chamisa, held a press conference 2 days ago where he went over the position of the Triple C movement, and there is unity in the Triple C movement. What we are really concerned about is what's going on in the country. Unfortunately, for most ordinary Zimbabwean citizens, life is getting more and more miserable because Mr. Mnangagwa's government is not capable of delivering. That is why we think that Mr. Mnangagwa is engaging in these side shows where he keeps recalling members of parliament elected by the citizens of Zimbabwe. So there is absolutely no confusion. If anything, there's unity. If you go on social media today, you will see that there's so much solidarity for the MPs who were supposedly recalled. There's a lot of solidarity, and everyone is rallying around President Chamisa's call that we need to bring this governance crisis to an end so that we can start delivering on behalf of the Zimbabwean citizens. We need our economy to work again. We need our hospitals to work again. We need to have better infrastructure, things like that. That's what we should be working on. That's what you would think should be the focus after an election, like what happened in August.
Party must have done a post-mortem. How was it? What made you lose the election?
Well, first of all, the election was a sham, right? It was shambolic. I'm sure those in Zambia who were following this closely could notice some very, very unusual developments during the election. One of them was that the ballot boxes were not delivered in time for more than 12 hours in the major cities, including Harare and Bulawayo. That's a very bizarre development where you have voters waiting in line for more than 12 hours. And unfortunately, we actually lost a Zimbabwean citizen while he was waiting in line to vote in Harare, just because of some of these very extreme, poor or malpractices that happened. That is why SADC and other observer missions have said the election was shambolic. Regardless of that, we did our own parallel voter tabulation. And that parallel voter tabulation is what makes us say we won the election. There was an official report, there was an official declaration, but that's far removed from the numbers we actually tabulated as a movement. So that is why we insist that we won the election. However, I think at this point, we are pointing to a situation where we should redo the election. We do it properly. Let's do it properly so that ZANU-PF, CCC, and any other participant can sign off of the election. So this is not about CCC winning or losing. It was a sham election.
With that said, are there steps that you've taken to make sure that this case is taken further?
So, of course, we are doing a number of things, my brother. One of them is I understand the MPs who are affected, some of them have taken the people involved to court. That's one thing that's happening. On the other hand, we have also given an ultimatum to the Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Jacob Mutenda, to say to him, you need to correct the mistake you made. Because today, if a ZANU-PF member comes, writes a letter to the Speaker and says, I'm recalling the president of ZANU-PF, Mr. Mnangagwa, I am sure that the Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Mutenda, will not just say it's business as usual, we're going to recall the president. It doesn't work like that. So what really needs to happen is for Mr. Mutenda to do the right thing. Mr. Mutenda, the Speaker of Parliament. Mr. Mnangagwa should focus on the business of governing as we speak. As a movement, of course, we learn from every process, including this past election. What worked, what didn't work. We want a Zimbabwe where we have democratic elections that every citizen, even those who disagree with the government of the day, will say this passes the mark. I'm sure that's happening in Zambia as we speak, where, you know, some people may not have voted for President Hichilema, but they acknowledge that the majority of Zambians voted for President Hichilema. That's what we need to see in Zimbabwe. That's all we want to see. And unfortunately, it has taken this long to get there. What it means is that each day we don't fix this governance crisis. It means that we are losing a lot of Zimbabwean lives because the government, for all practical purposes, is not performing the duty that is expected of a government.
Your president also has been accused of being aligned to the West. Is that true?
Well, my brother, we are all aligned to the West. I'm actually talking from America as we speak. So being aligned to the West is never really a problem. And I know that ZANU-PF government says, you know, they are a friend of none and enemy to none, a friend to all, essentially. We believe the same. In Triple C, we can work with any country on the face of the earth, including China, Russia, the United Kingdom, America, anybody whom we can work with to improve the lives of ordinary Zimbabwean citizens, we are going to work with. You know, it's called national interest. If national interest says that we should talk to the Chinese, we're going to talk to the Chinese. If national interest says we should talk to Americans, we're going to talk to Americans. That's how you should run a country. It can't be on the basis of their enemies. There are no such thing as permanent enemies in politics and in world governance and diplomacy. So it's about national interest. Our national interest is that we should work with America where we need to work with America. And the same is true for us working with Zambia, working with other countries in the SADC region.
Dr. Simbiso, how is your relationship, your president's relationship with President Hakainde Hichilema?
I have it on good authority that they are good friends.
That claims that makes the claims valid from. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, you know, I think we are learning a lot from President Hichilema. I know that after your election, after he got into office, there are so many challenges, you know. But we Zimbabweans, we look at Zambia, we look where Zambia is going, and we say President Hichilema is doing the best he can, and we wish him well. We hope that he continues to succeed. And he is a brother, and we learn a lot from him.
Say there's been some allegation that President Hakainde Hichilema could have tried to champion, obviously did have a hand and wanted your president to win the elections. Those are allegations that are coming from the main political party.
Well, it's never a problem for President Hichilema to wish our President Nelson Chamisa a win. Because he is a fellow Democrat. So it's not a problem at all. However, it's up to the Zimbabwean citizens who they want to lead them. We, the Zimbabwean citizens, want Advocate Nelson Chamisa to be leading our country, and it should have happened this past election, if not 2018. So it's never a problem. President Hichilema is a leader, currently the chairperson of SADC. We do understand that. That is why he appoints teams like the one that just did the SADC Observer Mission in Zimbabwe, led by Dr. Nevas Mumba. And anybody out there who is objective can really see that the Observer Mission did its job very well. It did its job very well, and whatever they observed, that's what Zimbabwean citizens have been saying for the past 20 years, if not more. So it's a good thing. I don't think that President Hichilema liking our President Advocate Nelson Chamisa is a problem at all. And it's a question of making sure that we observe and follow protocols, SADC protocols, and that's the way it is. How are we going to exist if we don't have our leaders talking to each other, especially in SADC? We really need to have a SADC that works for every SADC citizen, including those in Zimbabwe and Zambia, and that's going to take our leaders working together. Thank you, my brother.
With that said, how do you describe the democratic space in your country?
We do have democratic aspirations. We keep voting every election season. However, the will of the Zimbabwean people has not been respected. And that is why we are in this current mess. That is why you would find that instead of the government of the day embracing the report from the SADC Observer Mission and saying we are going to learn from it, currently we have a situation where these guys are attacking the messengers. When I'm saying guys, I'm talking about some ill-informed citizens representing ZANU-PF attacking leaders in Zambia, Dr. Mumba and so forth, to say you should not tell us the truth. You should not tell us that we mismanaged our own election. That should not be happening. That tells you that we have a big problem. And I hope that we get to a situation where we have this corrected once and for all, so that anytime we have elections in Zimbabwe, they are above board. Nobody says that an election will not have its own challenges, but let it not be because the government of the day is abusing certain institutions like the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. And that, unfortunately, is what we have had to deal with in Zimbabwe. And I hope that we put this to an end once and for all, because unfortunately, the lives of ordinary Zimbabwean citizens so much depend on the government of the day. The government led by Mr. Mnangagwa has failed dismally, and that is why citizens were saying we want Advocate Nelson Chamisa running our government so that we will have Zimbabwean citizens at the center, so that whatever decisions we are making, we are not busy creating enemies even of our brothers across the north, but we are busy improving the lives of ordinary Zimbabwean citizens.
With your country full of sanctions, what are you doing to make sure, as the political party, behind closed doors, what are you doing to make sure that sanctions are reluctant on your country?
Well, I know people talk of sanctions. I happen to be in America. I understand very well the basis of when we talk about sanctions. So they are what we call targeted measures or restrictive measures that have been imposed on individuals in Zimbabwe because of human rights abuses. That said, these same individuals run a lot of organizations in Zimbabwe, companies. So when they are sanctioned, that also affects how those companies perform in Zimbabwe. And that is the tragedy. That is because the government of the day has not opened up the Zimbabwean economy so that any able Zimbabwean can participate in that economy. So what we need to happen is we need to have a citizen-centered government in Zimbabwe. A citizen-centered government will not be busy making enemies like the government of the day has done, or some of the individuals in government today have done. That will make it easy for countries like the United States of America to say, we can do business with these guys. So unfortunately, some of those sanctioned individuals today, they are not able to do business in America, for instance. But that doesn't mean myself as a Zimbabwean citizen in America, I can't do business in Zimbabwe. In fact, some of us, we run a number of companies from America operating in Zimbabwe. So those sanctions, they are as effective as who is implicated or who is affected. And we don't need to be creating enemies. So when we come in as the citizen-centered government or the Citizen Coalition for Change government, we will be able to communicate clearly to the world to say, we are really open to work with anybody. We are not here to persecute our own citizens, which is what has been accused of the government of the day. I'm sure you have read a lot of reports about people like Job Scala, who are prisoners of conscience, Jacob Ngarivume, prisoners of conscience. Why are we imprisoning our people? These are representatives of the citizens of Zimbabwe. Why are they being imprisoned? Because they disagree with the government of the day. That should not be happening.
In Zimbabwe being a democratic country, have you, tried to dialogue with the ruling party?
Of course, my brother. The ruling party is myself, is everybody else. Well, what I mean by that is the people in the ruling party are our brothers and sisters. We are never enemies. So dialogue is an ongoing process. It has been there. It is still there. The issue is there sincerity? Some people believe that when you are in power, you boss everybody around. The best demonstration of power is to know when not to use it. Like this example that I've mentioned about these senseless recalls of our members of parliament. That is a form of dialogue. Mr. Mnangagwa knows very well that it is senseless to be recalling citizen representatives soon after they have been elected to parliament. It's madness. That's a form of dialogue. What the dialogue we need is to be able to resolve the governance crisis so that next time we have an election, ZANU-PF wins fair and square, we can actually call to concede and congratulate them. That's the dialogue that is lacking in our country at the moment. We're talking, but we're talking past each other because those who are running our state institutions, including the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, the Zimbabwe Parliament, they are very insincere. And unfortunately, everyone in Zimbabwe is paying a huge price because of the governance crisis that they have created. Those in ZANU-PF today, they are also asking, is this it? Does it mean we are stuck with Mr. Mnangagwa for another 5 years? Does it mean we are going to have ZANU-PF for another 5 years again? The reason why a lot of people are saying that, they are calling it suffer continua, which means we are going to continue to suffer. They know that Mr. Mnangagwa is incapable. He doesn't have the capacity to change the fortunes of the Zimbabwean citizens in terms of economic development, in terms of making sure that we have state-of-the-art schools and hospitals and infrastructure. So basically, we look forward to a situation where these issues are corrected once and for all.
So we saw the SADC report giving you all these evidence. You're not taking this matter anywhere. You've just decided to fold your hands as a political party just like that?
No, we're not folding our arms, my brother. The Triple C is a citizen movement. Citizens are at the center. So the last court in any country is the people, the citizens of Zimbabwe. I know that some people have said, well, you should have gone to court to contest the results and so forth. We think that with the way our institutions have been captured, we need citizens of Zimbabwe to resolve this issue. We need citizens to be talking. That is why we have given the Speaker of Parliament 14 days to make sure that the will of Zimbabwean citizens is respected. That's number one. Number two, we are making it clear to the government of the day, led by Mr. Mnangagwa, that if you don't sit down so that we can have a credible process that everybody signs to, it won't be business as usual. Because the reason why it won't be business as usual, it's not because Triple C just wants to get into power. It is because without resolving the governance crisis, we are going to continue to have suffering of our people. Our economy will continue to get worse. And Mr. Mnangagwa would like to blame that on sanctions, although I'm sure some of you have seen the gold mafia. There has been a lot of corruption. There is a lot of corruption. There's a lot of misuse of public institutions and resources. We need that to come to an end. So we're not folding our arms. The citizens are talking. And we hope that Mr. Mnangagwa listens. And we hope that the Speaker of Parliament doesn't delay another minute so that the citizens of Zimbabwe can count on the Parliament of the day to be solving issues like making sure that Zimbabwean students have grants, college grants and loans, things like that, very basic, which Parliament should be focused on. They should be focused on making sure that Zimbabwe can have a stable currency again, a stable currency that is recognized in Zambia, in Malawi, in South Africa. The government of the day is failing to do those very, very basic things. Our hospitals today are in shambles. And unfortunately, when Zimbabwe is suffering, Zambia suffers, South Africa suffers. Because as you know, there's a migration crisis as we speak. I'm sure Zambia, as Zambia gets better and better, they will realize if we don't fix our issues in Zimbabwe, you will start saying, oh man, we love these Zimbabwean brothers and sisters, but we don't want this many of them coming to us like this. We have been doing that to South Africa, to Botswana. we don't need to be going to all those places. We just need to fix our country. Yes, if we feel that we can go to Zambia and work because we choose to do that, that's okay. What we don't want is to become economic refugees, which is what we are currently.
You mentioned that the democratic place in your country is slowly shrinking, and the party that is looking forward to form government, I earlier asked you if your party was probably looking forward to dialogue with the ruling party. What are you doing to make sure that you sit with the people of Zimbabwe as well as the government?
Well, as we speak, my brother, I'm sure there are interactions between representatives of Triple C and representative of ZANU-PF. I know we are talking all the time. I can't really give you specifics. I know that communication is going on in Parliament. I'm sure all that communication is going on at the local level. As you know, Triple C runs most of the cities in Zimbabwe, for instance. So ZANU-PF is forced to have to talk to Triple C in those local authorities. So there is a lot of discussion. Of course, we need a structured discussion that can give us a roadmap so that we have a mechanism so that we don't have contested elections again in Zimbabwe. And we hope that SADC will help us, will facilitate that process because, we can talk among ourselves, but we need to have guarantees. When you deal with a thief, you need to count your fingers. So unfortunately, there's so much mistrust that is built on over the years, such that we really, as Zimbabwean citizens, need interlocutors. We need people to help us, and SADC is a good platform for that. It has happened before. We know when we had a government of national unity in 2008, President Mbeki helped birth that process. We can have a similar. We're not asking for a government of national unity. That's not a lasting solution for anybody. What we're asking for is, can we help us develop a mechanism so that we don't have contested elections anymore in Zimbabwe?
Not with us, and we can allow phone calls on. Do call us on 0977-859609. That is the number that you are calling us on, and feel free to contribute on this program. 5 years is a long time. What exactly are you going to do, or what exactly are you doing as a party to make sure that when you form government, people still do not complain about the same things that you're condemning right now?
Oh, my brother, that's a very critical question. We, as the Triple C, are ready to govern. We are ready to govern in the sense that we do have an economic plan that will work once we get in government. I hope you have a chance to look at our manifesto, what we call a Great Zimbabwe Blueprint, that articulates what we will do for the economy, for our currency, for our healthcare delivery system, for our infrastructure, human rights, making sure there's peace and reconciliation in our country. So we have laid that out. It's very clear. That's one thing. Number two, we are also uniting Zimbabweans, because governance is not governance if you can't talk to each other as citizens. We are going to disagree on how to make Zimbabwe better, to make Zimbabwe work better for everyone. That is why elections are there, for us to compete on these ideas. However, we need to be able to talk to each other. So until that transformation happens, we will continue to talk to our ZANU-PF colleagues. They are not our enemies, like I said. We are brothers and sisters. So we will continue talking. We will continue to mobilize experts across the world. We have Zimbabweans all over the world who have gained a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge that is going to come in handy when we have a citizen-centered government. So we are consulting with all those professionals, including the lessons we are learning right now for those in Zimbabwe. So there's a lot of work going on. We are also making sure that we have a diplomatic initiative so that Zambians can know what it means when Triple C comes in power. Americans can understand what it means when Triple C starts running the government of the day. Chinese can feel the same way. So we're doing a lot of initiatives so that people can fall in love with Zimbabwe again.
We have seen politicians telling us that no, we'll reduce the cost of living, but it continues going, high and high. We want the people of Zimbabwe to hold you accountable when you form government. There are leaders that are not also accessible. What is your promise to the people of Zimbabwe?
Well, as Triple C, we're a citizen-centered movement. It's an organic movement. It's a flat organization. It's not a top-down organization. Of course, we do have people who play different roles in our movement, including the president, including our spokespeople, and so forth, communications. We promise the citizens of Zimbabwe that we're always going to be accessible. The people you're talking to now, they serve different functions, but really that's not what defines us. We are there deployed on behalf of the movement. And when we get in government, central government, that is, we're already in local government, we are there for service delivery. We are there as a deployment by the people to serve the people. And that is always going to be our compass. Also, we have some promises which are tangible, like creating $100 billion economy. People can hold us accountable for that. We talked about job creation. As you know, in Zimbabwe, unemployment is more than 80%. That's really, we shouldn't be talking like that at all. When you compare with America, unemployment here is like 4%. So we want to reduce unemployment. We want to stabilize our currency. We want our economy to grow continuously at an accelerated rate because we have lost so much time already on this governance crisis with a failed government. So those are some of the promises that we have made and we are highlighting. There's a lot more coming. Of course, we're always going to be accountable to the people. We came from the people, we belong to the people, and we work for the people.
Yes. Good evening. Your name and where are you calling from?
This is Mr. Wayapili.
Go ahead.
I'm calling from Osaka.
Go ahead, sir.
I have a question for Mr. Mukwananzi.
Dr. Simbiso actually is. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Now, my question, is he the guest from Zimbabwe?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. My question is, how is the political dispensation in Zimbabwe? And how does his party plan to create more employment for the people of Zimbabwe, especially considering the fact that in that country, reports suggest that a lot of people are not employed. And apart from critiquing the current government, what best solutions are they going to bring to the table? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for calling. Dr. Simbiso, I do hope that you got those questions.
Oh, thank you very much, my brother. I did get the questions. I may have missed a little bit. The political dispensation, obviously, we have a constitutional democracy, but we haven't functioned as a proper democracy for the reasons highlighted by the SADC Observer Mission. In terms of how we intend to create jobs, I would refer my brother to a new Great Zimbabwe plan or blueprint that we produced just before the election in August. But some of the things we are looking at, my brother, it's not just talk. Unemployment is very high. We have a lot of college graduates without jobs. it's a miserable place to be in Zimbabwe. Also, the people who are already employed, they are really underemployed because their salaries are very low. So part of the plan in terms of how to revive our economy involves infrastructure development. That's one example. We need smart infrastructure in Zimbabwe. We have our roads. One of my brothers from Zambia visited Zimbabwe recently, and he spoke to how our road infrastructure is in a mess. When you start working on fixing those roads, you're going to create employment. Number two, when we create an environment that enables companies to come into Zimbabwe and know that they have property rights, that the law will be followed, that there will not be confiscation, for instance, of company assets and things like that. That will help mobilize companies across the world to know that Zimbabwe is a destination where they can come and do business. As you know, Zimbabwe has a number of minerals, natural minerals, including lithium, diamond, gold. So we talk about value addition, where we're going to have manufacturing plants that are going to help develop all those minerals into products that you can use. You need lithium batteries, for instance. So we do have a lot of work. We have a lot of potential. We need to translate that potential into results so that we can create jobs for our young people particularly. That's what I would say in a nutshell, but I would refer my brother to the new Great Zimbabwe Blueprint that lays out in more detail how we plan to govern the country and how we plan to turn around the economy in Zimbabwe.
Unfortunately, Doctor, the time is not with us. What are your concluding remarks?
Thank you, my brother. Thank you so much for having me tonight. And thank you for the interest you take in Zimbabwe, the citizens of Zimbabwe. You are our brothers and sisters. We look up to you. I know you deal with your own issues in Zambia, but we very much follow closely what is happening. And we look forward to a Zimbabwe that's working again, where we have an economy that works for everyone. And when that happens, it also means that Zambians can come to Zimbabwe more freely and interact with us at different platforms. When they see us, when you see us in Zambia, you don't say, oh man, these Zimbabweans have come looking for jobs again. We come because we miss you. That's what I would say in a nutshell. Thank you.
Well, unfortunately, I wish I could take some calls. Thank you very much, Dr. Simbiso, for finding time to talk to us this evening. And we wish to have you once again so that you can, deliberate on what exactly your party is going to do once it forms government. Thank you very much, and have a lovely day where you are.
Thank you. Same to you, my brother. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, that is Dr. Simbiso coming from Zimbabwe. That's Citizens Coalition for Change, CCC party, where we were talking about issues that are coming from Zimbabwe. Thank you very much for tonight. My name is Alvin Siandavile. Do join us again on Monday with the Monday edition of Your Voice Governance. Good evening.